Hey everybody, it's Goose, back at it again with those DM vlogs. So, last time, the gang were at Yardstick's Master's Villa after escaping from the city of Anathem, and as they slept, their two NPC companions that had been with them for the entirety of the game so far disappeared mysteriously in the night, and the Yardstick's Master's butler was found murdered with two arrows in his back. So, the gang went and tracked them down to an old ruin, did a small dungeon crawl, and came back out to find themselves surrounded by cultists. And one of them stepped up and introduced themselves as Frank, the guard that they made a fool of the first session, thanks to Charm Person. Oh, also Banner, the Tabaxi, is dead, and my partner's character, Nephis, is not over it yet. So, this big fight I knew that the characters would be coming out of this small dungeon crawl with, I'd say, the hardest encounter I've put them through yet. And I knew I wanted this to be like, oh, the PCs are cornered, like, there's a lot of enemies. So I'm like, it wouldn't be reasonable to force the PCs to, like, fight through all of these cultists. Like, a lot of them were basic cultists, like, that would fall pretty much to one hit, but I also included some enemies that were a lot stronger than that. So I knew that, like, it'd be a tough fight, and I doubted that they'd be able to really beat the fight. So it's like, hey, I'd been thinking that, like, I'd been putting them through a lot of really simple encounters. See bad guy, fight bad guy, win. And, like, I wanted to mix it up a little bit. So combining that with, like, oh, this would be a really, really difficult fight, and, like, wanting it to be a little bit different, I decided, hey, Fen, the other NPC, the surviving NPC, that is with them, like, they're weak, but they're a warlock, so they have a little bit of juice left. So if the party can defend them for long enough, they should be able to teleport them back to the villa where they had their last long rest, which I'm pretty sure is a spell that exists. I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure it's a spell, so, like, I don't feel like this is an unreasonable thing for an NPC to be able to do. Like, it's not, I don't feel like it's like this Deus Ex Machina or whatever, hopefully. But it's like they gotta defend Fen while Fen, like, gets this ritual set up, kind of. And so they do manage to defend Fen for long enough. And also they do a lot of damage to the cultists. Frank's still up. Frank will likely make another appearance at a later date. Viren got knocked down again. Poor garbage man. A lot of people know that he's a changeling now, because changelings lose their mask when they're KO'd, so that might come into play later. So anyway, they do manage to, by way of Fen's spell, make it back to the villa. And when they come back to the villa, after being beat up real bad, Viren, like, teleports onto a bed and then, like, bounces off. They make it back, only to find that Yardstick's Masters they seem really worried about something, and so eventually the party finds out that the cultists, while the party was away, some cultists came in and took Eirik away, the master's son. And so they're not happy, but they know that the wagon that they took Eirik with was slow moving and it was almost dusk, so they'd have to take a rest soon. So I figured, hey, this would be a good, like, they need a long rest after everything that they've been through. Like, I'm not gonna force them to, like, march like this. So they do take that rest and set off kind of in the middle of the night without Fen, because Fen needs to recharge. Fen needs a break. It's been rough for them. But they find the single wagon, but you know what I mean. They find the cultists and manage to sneak up on them pretty well. Yardstick, being a College of Whispers bard, is a sneaky little bastard. So he manages to, like, find his way around to, like, the wagon and sees that Eirik is inside, but before he can attempt to, like, pick the lock or something, he still doesn't have lock-picking tools, so it wouldn't have gone very well for him anyway. Before he can, I'm gonna keep calling it a caravan. The caravan has a couple of dogs, and one of them starts barking. So one of the cultists who was standing guard, like, goes over there. Yardstick hides under the wagon, and meanwhile, Nephis, who recently got all the materials to use the spell, Conjure Steed, Summon Steed. Either way, it's one of the spells that my partner specifically asked for, and, like, it's flavor. It's not anything, like, super big, so I allowed it. So Nephis had managed to summon a reef shark mount, and at first the idea was, she floats in the air like it's water, but over the course of the session it was decided that she has stubby little puppy legs, which is adorable. Anyway, having noticed that Yardstick might be in a little bit of trouble, Nephis sends their new mount, named Isda, to go cause a little bit of distraction. And so Isda, having the characterization that I've been given, was like puppy, big puppy. So it's like Nephis ordered Isda to go create a distraction. So I decided that this reef shark with legs just hops up to a tent and just starts going at it, like, grabs it with her teeth and just starts flinging it around like a dog with a chew toy, which of course works. Like, the guards do not know what they're supposed to do with this. So eventually one of them, like, kicks her, poor dog, and so I have everybody roll initiative and start the fight. And the fight goes pretty well. A bit of sneaky breaky going on in the background as Yardstick uses Disguise Self, and with a really good animal handling check, manages to convince the dog that was still barking at him that he's a friend. And through that, after the whole fight, the party continued their trend of leaving one alive, not including the dog. The other dog sadly didn't make it because it went after Isda, but the party ends up with a dog who, while confused, after a couple more good animal handling checks, it's like, isn't outwardly hostile to the party. And another cultist that they captured, who they made me name. It took me a second. I just, like, mashed random name generators. His name's Isaac. And so they, like, interrogate Isaac a little bit, and I, try to roll to see how much he knows, because he's not as, I figured he wasn't as invested. He does not want to die. He doesn't want to meet Tiamat today. He knows a little bit, like, the mysterious notes that the party's been finding on cultists marked SH. It's like, oh, it's probably the Stoutheart family, which, coincidentally, Frank mentioned being a Stoutheart, and Yardstick, being familiar with the area, knows that a woman named Karina Stoutheart is, like, the captain of the guard in Anathem. It's like, oh. Because I intend to make Karina Stoutheart the, like, kind of mini-boss of this part of the campaign. You know, like, she's in control of this area, and she's high up in the cult, so, like, she has power over this area, and she's the one that hopefully the party will have to square off against before they can, like, leave the country that they're in. As part of this arc, the boss of this arc, hopefully. Anyway, the party actually takes Isaac, this poor man, back to the villa and is like, alright, you're their new butler now. You have a new job, which I think is probably gonna be a good way to be like, oh, now that the cult knows that the party's moving on, they're not gonna go after Yardstick's masters anymore. At least anytime soon. And Yardstick's masters, as thanks for rescuing their son, just gives them some treasure, gives them a bag of holding with a bunch of stuff in it, because I realized, hey, I haven't really been giving the players a lot of cool stuff to work with. So, along with the small cache of stuff they found in the cultists' hideout last session, I gave them a couple magic items. Let's see. Cloak of Many Fashions, which is something small, bag of holding itself, which is like, you know, a staple. And I also decided to give them a Rust Bag of Tricks, which is one of the things that you reach in, you grab a little lint ball and you huck it and it turns into an animal for a day. And you know, it was just sunrise as they were coming back. So Yardstick decides, I think it was Yardstick decides to try it out and pulls a lint ball and throws it, and you know, you roll to determine what it is. And it was a giant goat. And since it was sunrise, just about like half an hour before, and the creatures disappear at next sunrise, there's just gonna be a huge goat on the villa for a whole 24 hours. And we'll wrap the session up there, because after this goat was summoned, like, it devolved into a debate as to whether or not they could eat the goat. And like, you know, I have the stats on everything, and I'm like, it's like, it says right here that if the animal is reduced to 0 hit points, it disappears. Like, you cannot eat this goat. But it's like, but what if it didn't? Like, what if you could eat it? Like, would it disappear in your stomach after 24 hours? And like a whole conversation there. So I ended the session there. Overall, I think this campaign's going pretty well, considering that, like, this is my first time DMing. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I have realized that I've mostly set the players against, like, humans, pretty much just cultists and guards so far. So, like, with that fight to rescue Eirik, I included some dogs to, like, switch things up a bit. But hopefully in the future I'll be able to, I'm planning to actually next session, to take a break from the cult stuff and, like, have them encounter some monsters on the road. And, like, I have something planned for them to, like, come to a village that's deserted and they have to, like, figure out why. And it'll be like a monster, so hopefully I'll be able to add a bit more diversity combat-wise. I've also noticed that I feel like I've been running a lot of combats in the past couple sessions, so I'm hoping to, like, add more dungeon crawls, like watching some traps, and, like, encounters with NPCs, stuff like that, that hopefully should mix up the gameplay a little bit and let the characters or roleplay a little bit more. Because my partner and Viren's player both really like roleplay, as does Yardstick's player. And I feel like they've been roleplaying a lot. They've been doing pretty well. So has Ryu's player. She kind of keeps to herself with the roleplay. She doesn't really interact very much with other characters or NPCs, but like she goes out and she finds snakes. Add to her like little collection of snakes. I'd really like to encourage Arachne's player to maybe roleplay a bit more, because her player like has a distinct voice for her that he uses and has a distinct character in mind, but I don't feel like he's been role-playing a lot, so I'm hoping that I can encourage him a little bit more to do that. And hopefully in that vein, pretty soon, like, the party will have to cross the mountains to get out of this country and hopefully head towards the Dragon City. But Arachne's a dwarf, and she was kicked out of her village, which has a lot of good seed material there. So I don't think her players and I have agreed on like the exact location. So I'm thinking that maybe as the players cross the mountains, they'll have to pass through Arachne's home village, which should hopefully encourage a little bit more roleplay. I've played with her player before, and the previous character that he ran was mute. So I don't know. I don't think he likes talking roleplay very much. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll have to ask him. I'll ask him. But I know that everyone else enjoys it, at least to some extent. So I don't want to just be like all combat. I'll give him some puzzles and give him some NPCs to interact with. As I've said a bunch of times, I just want everybody to have fun, and hopefully by varying stuff a little bit more. I'm hoping to ensure that everyone gets a chance to shine. It's been a lot of Nephis and Yardstick recently, because it's Yardstick's Master's Villa. Like, Yardstick knows these NPCs, and so hopefully, like, it'll be someone else's turn soon. And I just really hope that they're enjoying themselves. With that, I need to go let them know that it's time for them to level up again. So, until next time, happy adventuring.